Good morning, class. How are we all doing today?
Great, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very happy to be speaking today in effective speaking on this great Saturday morning. So everyone close your eyes and picture yourself floating through a calm flow of water. It is very warm and shallow. There is minimal sound, but you do use some sound to communicate with your friends around you. The sun is always out, and you just follow right through the water. If you're all very relaxed, you may open your eyes. You all just became a manatee. So there are a lot of water-based animals that left go unnoticed, and the manatee is one of them. And according to my survey, 50% of you are somewhat interested, 50% has very little interest, and only 30% of you are informed on manatees. After today's speech, I would like to have 100% of you informed and interested on manatees. Ever since I was young, I traveled to Florida all the time, and my aunts and I would go look at the manatees in the water, and I was always very fascinated with them. And I just thought they were very interesting and relaxed, and that I envied from them. And so to begin, I would like to go further into detail on what a manatee is. On my survey, many of you wrote that manatees are sea cows and huge animals. I would like to explain why they are called that. In the book The Manatee, written by Alvin Silverstein, he states exactly what a manatee is on page 16. He says, manatees are commonly known as sea cows because they graze in pastures of water grasses, much as cows do graze on grasslands. So if you ever drive by a farm and you see a cow grazing on and eating on the farmland that he is on, that's mainly what manatees do at the bottom of their habitat where they live. And they also belong to the Serena group, and according to Silverstein, the 4 types that still exist in the waters today is the West Indian manatee, which is the most commonly known and the most commonly talked about, the West African manatee, the Amazonian manatee, and the dugong. So basically, the ones I'm going to talk about today is the West Indian manatee because they are the most commonly talked about. And manatees' bodies are very seal-shaped. They range from brown and gray. They can grow up to 13 feet and weigh up to 3,500 pounds. So you can imagine it's a pretty big animal. If it's like twice the size of me or an average person's height, it is very big. And their mouth described as Silverstein on page 17, he states its upper lip is divided into halves that closes down on food like pliers. So they don't chew like normal animals or like humans chew. They kind of just go up, plie down, and that's how they eat. And another fact is they have all the 5 senses that we do, they just use them differently. They have an exceptionally great sight and hearing, and they can see things up to 115 feet away. And they also make sounds underwater to communicate with a mate or try to find a friend. And not only do they have some cool physical features, they also have a very distinct habitat. First, you will never see a manatee floating through like the White Rapids or a very fast-moving river. They are always somewhere calm and slow. They can be found in the Caribbean islands, in Florida, as well as Central America and Brazil. They mainly live their whole life underwater. You will rarely see a manatee on land just because they are water-based mammals and animals. Although, of course, they need to breathe, so every 20 minutes they will come up to the surface, take a breath, and go back down, and that usually repeats about every 20 minutes or so. And Florida manatees also rely on warm water. So Florida manatees rely on warm water refuges in the southern 2/3 of the Florida Peninsula. In an article written by Sarah Bowden called Winter Habitat Preferences for Florida Manatees and Vulnerability to Cold, she states that the Florida they can't go below 18 degrees in water or else they will face cold stress or death. So they have to rely on the warm water refuges to make sure that they can still stay alive and healthy, because if it goes below, they will die. And manatees are also herbivores, so their habitat has to rely on plenty of vegetation and plant or else they will go hungry or starve, which is not good. So their habitat has to have a lot of vegetation on the ground so they can eat. And also, another fun fact, according to Silverstein, by the manatees is male manatees that aren't just ready to mate with another one, they form bachelor herds. So the one manatee will leave the other male manatees that aren't ready to find like a female manatee, and they just go around and play. So not only do they have a very distinct habitat, they also face a problem with boat collision and watercraft. And the largest problems manatees face today is collision with watercraft. And on my survey, one of you asked, why do they keep running into boat propellers? First, manatees are very slow and they can't move out of the way quick enough for a boat that is coming down where they live in their habitat. So the boat operator has to follow the speed limit to allow the manatee to get out of the way. They can hear it, but they just can't move fast enough. And in an article written by Sarah Bolden, An Index of Risk Co-Occurrence Between Marine Mammals and Watercraft, an example of the Florida manatee, she says, in this case of the Florida manatee, collisions with boats are a primary source of mortality. To add, Sarah also claimed it has been suggested that for manatees, boat speed limits in high-use areas tend to reduce the risk of deadly collisions by providing the boat operator and the manatee more time to avoid the collision and by reducing the severity of injuries when a collision does occur. So to conclude, a manatee faces problems amongst boat collisions, although if the boat operator is following the speed limit, the risk can be reduced and allows them to move out of the way. So to wrap up, manatees are mammals that live in shallow, warm water, and they are herbivores and they feed off vegetation. Along with bays, estuaries, and Florida, they can also be found in coastal areas. An issue they also face is boat collision, which is the leading source of death. So if you ever find yourself in Florida or anywhere where manatees are located, I hope this speech gave you some background information on manatees. And if you ever find yourself driving a boat or steering a boat near marine life, make sure you follow the speed limit to allow the manatees and other marine to get out of the way. So now 100% of you are informed on manatees. Thank you.